I'm Amanda. Welcome to my channel. We're going to talk about not fitting in. And we aren't in high school anymore, but it can feel like it sometimes when you're on your spiritual awakening journey. During your spiritual awakening, a lot of light, a lot of powerful energy starts to move through the body and it can make things very uncomfortable that didn't used to be uncomfortable. So if you're someone like me who spent a lot of life people pleasing and going with the crowd and trying not to cause a stir, trying to fit in, follow trends, do what other people are doing and be a copycat, well, during spiritual awakening, doing those things is going to start to become extremely painful. And I know many of you know what I'm talking about. Even if you didn't spend most of your life trying to fit in, some people are born very at ease with their eccentricities and being the odd one out, which is pretty commendable. And it also comes with a lot of pain and rejection from being yourself from a young age. For the rest of us, this hits at certain points in our spiritual awakening. And so many people that I talk to about this experience or have experienced so much pain of rejection when they start to be themselves. So much experiencing being misunderstood or looking like the odd one out when you're finally just having the courage to use your voice and you're finally just having the courage to express your unique preferences. And this can be really painful. And for some of us, it can be very ongoing. And so we want to move forward and be true to our convictions and speak our truth and not pretend to be just like whatever the group is doing, which changes all the time anyways. We start to feel really uncomfortable when we betray ourselves to do these kind of things. Where in the past it was actually easier to just try and get along and agree with everybody. And now your inner experience is like you walk away from agreeing with something that you didn't really agree to truthfully, and you just feel like you've let yourself down. You might even feel some heaviness or guilt, or like it's a slap in the face of your higher self. And this is actually a good thing. It is a good sign if this is happening, because you're coming much, much, much closer to who you really are, and the different parts of you are starting to work together and be connected. And when the one part of us betrays the whole rest and betrays the truth, it should be painful. This is to guide us towards being more honest and truthful about what keeps us in alignment. And yet in the outside world, it can cause a lot of problems. And this usually flares up when we are at one of our thresholds, one of our precipices of becoming a little bit more embodied, a little bit more honest and truthful, and maybe big things are shifting around and it can feel really unstable. And to add more to it, we are doing our best to be ourselves and stay in alignment with our truth and our true nature in the outside world. And that can feel very loud or irritating or confusing maybe to people around us who are much more comfortable themselves with groupthink and kind of tribal thinking. And we start to feel like we're rubbing people the wrong way just by being ourselves. And if you know what I mean, then you're no stranger to this. And this can go on for a long time. And it can be test after test after test of, are you going to stay sovereign as far as your expressions and as far as the decisions you're making? Do you have the courage to stay sovereign? Because when spirit is in us and moving and expanding into parts of us that it hasn't touched before, it needs a vessel. It needs a human container, a person who is willing to say yes to their truth, to say yes to their convictions, to say yes to being themselves. And if we stop that from happening and we continue to try and just be like everybody else and be that copycat, then spirit is there continuing to try and expand in us, putting pressure on those points. So it's kind of like there's this little bit of conflict where it's so much more comfortable to be in agreement, even if we're not really, with everybody else and not stir the pot. It's more comfortable to the ego and the small self. But now there's that pressure from spirit on that small self saying, no, this is not going to work anymore. It's actually never going to work again. And spirit doesn't let us abandon ourselves once we start to collect our true essence and start to be true to ourselves. So this is a really painful thing, and it can bring so many pain points over months and years for some of us, especially if as a young person using our voice, being authentic, came with a lot of criticism or punishment or exclusion from our family or from our schoolmates or whatever. Even though we're adults and we're mature enough now to use our voice and say yes, it can still, those kind of looks from other people of misunderstanding or of judgment, those can trigger old wounds that were very powerful from when we were little. And when we were little, we really, we so much needed the support of those around us because we were just learning how to be in our body and be in this world. And when we were misunderstood, it was so scary and so painful. And so those wounds can get reactivated nowadays during our spiritual awakening when we're at work or when we're in a social situation and we say something that was really authentic and not rude or insulting, but it didn't fit the group think. It didn't fit what those people are used to hearing or wanted to hear. And we can really reactivate these old wounds. So as painful as it is, it's an opportunity for us to heal and move the energy through of those old wounds from when we were younger and we were misunderstood or we were different or we were embarrassed or we were left out when we were being ourselves. And so, I think a lot of people can relate to this, where you're in this adult body and you're doing adult things and then you're just feeling these really painful things on the inside from experiences with other adults. And they don't even have to be big and loud. They can be subtle, because in the spiritual awakening, we're becoming very sensitive to energy. We're sensitive to other people's their perspective towards us. We can kind of tell, we can read between the lines, and we can feel if we're being accepted or not. And we can often feel like a child again during this process, and very vulnerable and raw. And so when we are rejected, whether it's very obvious or just a little bit subtle, it can be extremely deep and painful. So we have to have understanding and compassion first for ourselves, and then also understanding that we are living in a world, as we're transforming and we're evolving, we're living in a world where not everybody is. It's not everybody's time. So the majority of people obviously are very attached to their personality, to their culture, to their gender, to the way things have always been, the way that things have always been done. People are very attached to these things. And when that is threatened or questioned, or somebody is in their presence who is not so attached to those things, who's not taking it that seriously because they're starting to find their inner self, which is so much more permanent and powerful than any of those little things, that can kind of send a strange ripple effect that activates other people's attachments, and people don't necessarily like that. For us who are starting to come into contact with our deeper self and the power of God inside of us that is eternal and perfect and hopefully growing more and more in our life every day, for us it's exciting because we have a foundation that we are discovering that goes deeper than culture and gender and personality and what we look like. It's such a relief, actually, to come into contact with our higher self more and more. And so we take less seriously these things that are temporary. All of these personality dressings are just not so important. And as exciting as that is as an inner experience, it's not that exciting when you are living every day with other people that are not experiencing that and find you strange and maybe create a little bit more and more distance between you and them. So, Whether you've been a lifelong outlier and you're very familiar with rejection and not being able to fit into the group, or it's just starting to surface now, it doesn't matter. We're all in this together. This was supposed to happen. Like, you haven't done anything wrong. This was destined to happen for whatever reason. You awoke in this life, or you started your awakening process in this life of uncovering your deeper self, which is eternal and permanent and perfect and supportive. A tipping point for whatever reason came where your soul or your beingness was just mature enough to spiritually awaken. And that means that that you are strong enough. You're strong enough to deal with whatever rejection and misunderstandings happen as a result of you being yourself. Spirit is infinitely intelligent enough to not force this on anybody who doesn't have the capacity to stand on their own 2 feet and to be okay and to feel these big feelings of hurt or rejection or misunderstanding as these situations happen socially. You would not have awoken. Spirit would not have put that on you if you weren't strong enough. It doesn't mean you've got it all figured out. It doesn't mean you're not going to look like a fool and feel the crushing burden of rejection when you go home at night. But it means that you'll be able to make it okay. It means you're going to be able to make it okay, no matter how painful it is. And when the soul is ready for you to stop being part of groupthink and stop throwing away your authenticity and betraying yourself, the soul makes that very clear. And the truth is, did you really enjoy, deep down, in a very deep level, did you really enjoy agreeing with people you don't agree with, going with the flow of people who you can see a lot more wisdom beyond what their plans are? Did you really enjoy that? We sometimes feel as though we need to continue to fully immerse ourselves in social situations with people who don't understand us. We sometimes force ourselves to continue to do that when we don't feel welcome. Why would we do that? Because we've been doing it our whole life on some level. We're just so used to being in places where maybe we don't fully fit in just because we were forced to when we're younger. And now as adults, some of us have repeated it, even when we have full free will on where we spend time with and who. We still are so used to going and being around social situations where our true self isn't welcome, and we just go back and back. It's like we're punishing ourselves. But once we wake up to this, it's a game changer. Once we see that that's what we're doing, whether you go to like a men's group or a women's group or a sport group or a book group, or even if you've got like a friend or something like that where you're just always just kind of like, once you wake up to the fact that you are doing this to yourself, that you are choosing to spend your precious time with people who don't fully welcome the authentic you, then it's such a moment of liberation. It's like a bird cage where the door is wide open. Now that you can see that the door is wide open, you don't have to keep repeating that. You don't have to keep punishing yourself. When we were young, we were forced to be in situations where we felt out unwelcome. We didn't have a choice back then. We were little. But now we do. You have a choice. And I also noticed that sometimes in my own life, I would have people who were like other unique, eccentric people, often maybe quiet people, that I did feel comfortable with. And we can forget that they're there. Maybe we don't have a lot of them, but I'm sure most of us have 1 or 2 of these kind of people in our life or on our contact list. And for whatever reason, some of us are drawn to return over and over to situations where we don't feel welcome. And yet those other people we never contact or call. And it's literally just that program where we're replaying that program of punishing ourselves. And we don't have to do that. And so there is often a period of long isolation where there aren't too many people who get us. There aren't too many people who accept the authentic version of us. And during that time, it's a opportunity for rapid growth. And it's an opportunity for direct expansion because you don't have other people around you kind of distracting you and influencing you it's like you and you. So any isolation that comes from this process, even though you might really not like it and it might be really uncomfortable and lonely sometimes, you will look back on it, if you don't already, and see it as a period of a direct expansion that just simply could not have actually happened if you were part of the group and being really social all the time. And then another point will come, or maybe already has come, where you actually really enjoy your own company more than you thought that you ever could. And that is because you are learning to rest in your own true beingness, that is becoming more present and more able to be felt and more comfortable as you continue to do your work and clear through the blockages. There's less to bother you. At a certain point, doing all this spiritual work that we talk about all the time ends up being so worth it, because all of these triggers that you've felt through and you've experienced consciously and you've suffered through many times, they dissolve one by one, where you don't get to this place where everything is just perfect and you're never disrupted. But the majority of the big ones have been dissolved. And what is remaining? What is remaining is a closer experience, a more palpable and tangible experience of your true self, your higher self. And not in necessarily a mystical way, just in it like a resting within being. There's a word, I think it's in Sanskrit, called parusa. It describes resting, beingness resting in its own being in a safe, serene, moment-to-moment way. And that at that point, when you are around other people or groups, you become a little bit more selective. When that isolation period of time is over, or it's ending, and you start to feel a little bit more motivated to be social again, you start to be really selective on where your time goes, because that time alone in isolation, where you were learning to be with yourself and what that felt like, which can be really beautiful, now sits in contrast to groupthink and social situations where you might be unwelcome. And yet, resting in yourself is a welcome place. And so I would encourage you, if you know what I'm talking about, to keep that welcome feeling that you are developing within yourself, which will continue to emerge if you continue to do this work, as your baseline. You know, if a person or a group does not welcome you, your authentic self, as much as you welcome yourself in your personal quiet time, then they don't make the cut. That's what it comes to. They don't make the cut. They're not bad people, but they should be dealt with in limitation, because you deserve spaces where you are welcome. You deserve spaces that are appreciating the authenticity that you are channeling just by being yourself, just by what you're wearing, just by the jokes that you're making, just by you sharing your opinion. You know, as long as you're not harming somebody else, your authentic self should be welcome. And another thing is, confidence is quiet, but insecurity is loud. So people who are quiet or observant, who are listening in social situations, are sometimes deemed shy or introverts, or as though they're less valuable in that social situation. But if you really look at it, often those people don't have the need to be loud. Those people don't have the need or the requirement to make a ton of noise, because there's a part of them that's already resting in themselves within that social situation. And so this does not mean we don't be social. Like, I'm probably not communicating that super well, but it means that when we approach these situations as though we are resting in ourselves, where our feet are solidly on the ground, our presence and our awareness is very much in the body, it's very embodied, it's solid, where you are experiencing yourself as solid as a rock in the first place, and then anything that's going on around you is secondary. And this is you welcoming yourself. It's a long journey of welcoming ourselves for some of us. It's a long journey of embodiment, but I know that if I can do it, anybody can do it. I struggled with being embodied. I struggled with groupthink. I struggled with being myself for most of my life. This is such important work. This is like the biggest gift you could ever give yourself. The biggest gift you could ever give your inner child is to learn to rest within yourself and to welcome yourself, no matter who is welcoming you on the outside or not. We can't control those kinds of things. This whole situation, again, it affects you, especially when you're expanding into your essence. You might call this the process of individuation. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens, over the course of our life or lives in stages through many different trials and thresholds. But at each kind of like new, exciting threshold of feeling more into your essence, feeling more comfortable with being authentic and enjoying what is emerging. At each new stage of that, more conflict can happen on the inner world. There can be the ego and the small part of us that really does not enjoy what is emerging. And then there can be conflict, even if it's just subtle or perceived pressure from the outside as well, where we have these new experiences of yet again not quite fitting in and not quite connecting and not quite being included. And this is not to blame anybody else, and it's not to judge anybody else. It's just part of what's going on during this process. A lot of your energy and your focus and your life force is being circulated back into yourself in order to grow and strengthen your subtle body at this time. And so a lot of people find that that even social situations can be a little bit more draining during certain periods of time here. And that's really normal. We really need to nourish ourselves, because a lot of that energy is like literally clearing out old blocks. It's building a new version of us. It's changing parts of our physical body and our subtle body. It's doing so much. So we have to be really gentle on ourselves. There's nothing wrong with shining your light. I can't remember it exactly, but there's a verse in the Bible that Jesus talks about, like, don't cover up your lamp. A city on a hill should be seen. This isn't about bragging. This isn't about trying to be attention getting. Most of you guys are beyond that. This is about allowing the light of God to shine through your unique beingness, and then allow whatever beauty or creativity or authenticity that wants to come out to shine, however that might look. And so many people feel uncomfortable with that because they don't want to be the center of attention. You don't have to be the center of attention, but if that light, that shining bright light is wanting to shine, allow it to. You're just expressing your truth, and you have the right to do that. A lot of people who have had abusive pasts or have dealt with really dominant people or narcissists early in life don't really feel comfortable or safe allowing that to happen. And that can be some of our biggest tests, some of our biggest thresholds. It wasn't safe for us to shine our light and our authenticity at certain points. And so now we are in a better place. Now we are making a safe life for our inner child. And it's okay to start shining. Let this be let this be just one more message to remind you to shine your light as the light of God is wanting to move through you. If this bothers somebody else, if this makes somebody reject you or act strange around you, that is on them. You aren't harming anybody by being yourself. You're not insulting anyone or trying to make them small by being themselves. If anything, you're offering them an invitation. If they take it as a way where they feel threatened for some reason, or jealous, or they just simply don't understand you, or they don't understand the change in you, that is for them to process. We have to allow people to process that. But if you're not harming anyone and you have good intentions, then you need to shine your light. Because if you don't, that pressure from spirit that is expanding your body is going to keep pushing on you until you do. It can be really painful. There can be a lot of inner conflict if you don't want to shine your light. And only you know what that is, you know. Only you know what that looks like, but don't say no. And if somebody walks away from you or treats you poorly because you are shining your light, then this is probably not someone who's welcoming the authentic you. This is probably not somebody that you want in your life. And this can be a little bit uncomfortable, but if you just being your normal self, your authentic essence, not harming anybody, is rubbing someone the wrong way, is that person really for you? Is that somebody that spirit would want you to keep in your life? Would that really honor who you are and who you're becoming? So I heard somebody say, I can't remember who it was. It was somebody today on YouTube who said, when spirit says no, you say no. When spirit says no, you say no. And this is one of the fastest paths to direct success. This is one of the fastest paths to direct success. So what is spirit saying you? Like, what's your gut instinct about a person or a group that doesn't make you feel welcome? What is spirit saying? Whatever spirit's saying, that's what you need to say, and that's what you need to do. No questions asked. This is how it works. At this point, if this is going on with you, this is how it works. You just have to keep moving forward. Even if you sense somebody's got a bit of an evil eye, and they don't like what you are becoming, they don't like the karmic lessons that you're passing, they don't like the fact that you keep moving forward despite any adversity with your true faith and your feet on the ground, and you know your higher power as your solid rock. If people don't like that you just keep moving forward, then these are not the people for you. Even if it's your family members, you've got to be really true to yourself and true to spirit. It's not about other people and keeping them happy and preventing them from getting upset. And I think that's all. This is a message that I felt really, really needed to be said, because I've experienced it so many times myself, and I've heard so many other people talk about it lately. So it must be kind of flowing through the collective consciousness. So yeah, keep shining your light. Stop showing up where you're unwelcome. No one's forcing you to go there. And even if it's a time of isolation, when you don't show up where you're unwelcome, that is a very quick path to success. And there are usually a few quiet people, probably in your life, that you can be in contact with, and who are going to welcome you. Don't forget about those people, because those people are pretty precious and they probably understand the situation on some level too. Thank you so much for watching, liking, and commenting, and journey well.